This is Devin coming to you live from the house of the slave owner who owned now famous slave, Dred Scott. I have recently studied the causes of the American Civil War and discovered that the main cause was justice. The North believed that slavery in the South was wrong and unconstitutional. This is a huge deal. So I decided to make a short documentary on why justice played the greatest role in sparking the Civil War. The North and the South had very opposing social views, so the regions could never really agree on anything. For example, the North might have liked algebra, but maybe the South hated it. But of course, the Civil War was not fought over mathematics, but the two regions could not agree on their idea of slavery. While in the South slaves were widely used, in the North all slavery was banned by the Missouri Compromise and the African Americans lived free. One of the most famous slaves of this time was Frederick Douglass. He was the son of a white man and a slave woman, but he grew up as a slave. Later on in his life, he made his getaway to the North. He moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts and learned to read, write, and got married. Frederick Douglass was an abolitionist, or a person who fought for the rights of slaves by stirring up trouble. Sometimes, the abolitionists would go to the extremes and would kill the slave owners. One famous abolitionist was named John Brown. He believed strongly in the rights of slaves, and would try to arm the slaves with weapons of murder. Another event before the Civil War that treated the people's opinion of slavery was the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott was a slave owned by an officer in the Army. The officer lived in the Free State of Illinois and the Free Territory of Wisconsin, and for a long period of time he lived on free soil with the officer. But then his master was ordered to go back to the slave state of Missouri, where his master had died. Abolitionist lawyers tried to sue Scott his freedom because Dred Scott lived in free land for such an extended amount of time. But unfortunately, 7 out of 9 of the Supreme Court justices believed that he had no rights and was not a citizen, but a slave. Even the famed Abraham Lincoln spoke out against this ruling.
I don't like slavery.
The Compromise of 1850 repealed the Missouri Compromise and let the states and territories choose if they wanted slavery there or not, which some in the North did not like. One of the bills in the 1850 Compromise was the Fugitive Slave Act. This act had the people, both of North and South, capture runaway slaves and bring them back to their owners, and all accomplices would be arrested and fined. But this just made things worse, putting abolitionists in a bitter mood, and possibly getting them to strive to abolishing slavery even more.
Grr, I'm angry!
Frederick Douglass escaped during this time period, and changed his name to ensure that he would not be caught. The 1850 Compromise inspired Democrat Stephen Douglas to write the KansasNebraska Act, which allowed the two territories of Kansas and Nebraska to decide whether the territory should have slavery or not. Since this interfered with the Missouri Compromise, abolitionists and others against slavery thought the idea of letting slavery spread was not a justice and was unconstitutional. So fighting began in the territories. These battles were known as Bleeding Kansas. Bleeding Kansas was a series of violent events taking place in the territory, against pro-slavery and abolitionists. A book that was published during the time was titled Cotton is King, which was a pro-slavery book which stated that slavery and cotton was needed for America to go on. People against slavery hated this book and believed that it was against justice. One day, a woman named Harriet Beecher Stowe had enough, and wrote and published a book named Uncle Tom's Cabin. This book was based on the life of Josiah Hansen, who saved up enough money to buy his way to freedom, but was ripped off when the owner raised the price. So Josiah, portrayed as Uncle Tom in the novel, ran away from his master. Thank you for watching.